Well, hello everyone. It's Kevin here. Today, I want to talk about pricing your DJ services. Now, this is a somewhat controversial topic, and I know there's a lot of ways to kind of figure out this problem, but it's something that you should put some thought into because it has a lot of implications. Obviously, you don't want to be priced too low for your experience, your service level, etc. And you certainly don't want to be priced out of that range because you won't get the kind of business that you should. So, what I would like to do is show you guys a couple things that I look at when I choose to price my services. And I think it's really broken down into two simple things. One is think about the interior or the inside out way of pricing your services. And that would be things like, what does it cost you to put on your services? And then the second would be an exterior or an outside in view, which would be, what is the market around you? What are other DJs and DJ companies providing the market, and what are they charging? Okay, so let's get into this. I'm going to show you a sort of a behind the scenes look at the worksheets and the information that I use to price my services. You could replicate this. You could take bits and pieces of it. You certainly could maybe just take one idea from it, but I hope it helps. Okay, so let's get into it. Okay, first thing, I'm going to bring up my market intel information, and I usually keep this current as to the current year. I usually update it once per year. And so I just got finished with my refresh for 2021. So I label this Intel for 2020 because it's information based on 2020. So what is in here is basically a competitive landscape, and we'll talk through this worksheet. This is how I get that outside in view. And then we'll talk about the pricing calculation, which is almost like the inside out view. What do my costs, what costs do I bear to provide my service? So we'll talk about those two things, and they come together to give me, anyway, a good sense of what I should charge my clients, what pricing I should set for my weddings. I'm not talking about events and corporate parties or those kind of things as much as weddings here. Because I feel like I use and leverage an hourly rate, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But let's dive into this competitive information. Now, I've got, I don't know, a dozen companies and services that I've profiled here and gotten information on, and I kind of black them out so I'm not exposing them, and it's not because they just probably, I don't know, I feel bad showing their data, but I show mine, and you can get a sense of this information that I collect from my competitors and my peers. Now, one thing I'll say is there's lots of ways you can get that information. Certainly, you could look at websites, you could look at pamphlets that some of these folks might hand out at a wedding show or something like that. But you can also just talk to them, like meet them. You should be networking with your peers and get some information that way. But in any case, let's just look through this, okay? This is the information that I like to collect. DJ company name, of course. Website. What is the URL? What's their website? Owner. If they're an owner, sometimes it's a several owners. Single or multi-op. Is this a single operative company, one owner, one operator, or did they have multiple people working and doing DJing for the company? Full or part-time. What's the structure of their business in terms of, is this a primary business for the owner or owners, or is this a part-time thing and they have another job? Or some cases, multiple jobs, okay? Some of us do. Marketing, this is about what market did they play in. And most of my competitors here are tuned into greater Cincinnati, but some are a little more tightly focused, some a little larger focused. Marketing, which is where do they market their services? So web, and that could be WebSense or Google AdSense or something like that. Rather, Facebook and Instagram. That's me. But certainly other folks might have like Wedding Wire or The Nod or something like that. Public reviews. So basically, I have three columns here that have something to do with public reviews. And what I'm doing here, guys, is the public reviews are average scores. So I look out at wherever I can see reviews. So in my case, it's most prominently Google and Facebook. I do have Wedding Wire and I have some on Thumbtack and whatever, but I just look at Google and Facebook for me here. And what I do is I look at whatever the score is, and typically those two are out of 5 stars, and I take that and I turn it into a percentage. So I'm sitting at 100% right now, which is great, but essentially I try to normalize it to a percentage. Now, you can see down here, I have sort of like a max, average, median, and a min for the column of this quantitative data. You know, anytime there's numbers, we can do a little statistics on them. And the max is 100. I've got a couple friends and peers who have 100. And then the lowest on my list has a 79% average. And then the average of the averages is 92%. So not super hyper scientific, but it just gives me a directional kind of look at things. Okay. Now, public reviews volume, this is a multiplier because I wanted to weight a little more heavily those competitors that have a large number of reviews versus those who have just a few out there in the public realm. So public reviews, you can see I used a little system here, a little key system where a 0 would be 0 reviews would be a 0. A review count of 1 to 9, 1 through 9 would be a 1. A review count of 10 to 49 would be a 2, etc. Nothing magic about these distributions or these little groupings. It's just I wanted to create spread. I wanted to create sort of a bonus for those who had a lot of reviews, like over 200 in this case, and then a little less of a bonus for people who, a little less weighting for people who had less reviews. So then I take those two numbers, multiply them, and divide by 4 to get this public review index, I'm calling it. So is this some sort of scientific thing? No, it's just a way for me to gauge the level of public opinion on the DJ service, and also have a weighting against how many reviews are out there. So that's just a way to do it. I think public reviews are very important, not only because a person is going to, a client is going to be compelled to review a business and give you a good or a not so good review or whatever, but them putting themselves out there in the public realm is very important. And I think it's also some marketing, right? Because people look at those reviews and people read them. So if a company has a very low number of reviews, or they have a low score, both of those are bad signs for a mature company. So any case, I feel like this is important, and I have it calculated here. Okay, what's next? Pricing. So wherever I can, I get pricing for reception only for a wedding, and also wedding ceremony plus reception, which, by the way, is the bulk of what I do in my market, is the ceremony reception combo. Okay. So what do I do here? I just try to, because many DJ companies, this is something hard to normalize because many DJ companies have different packages that include different things, or they have a la carte systems. Some are per hour with a la carte or with a base. So what I try to do is say, hey, what's a 4 to 5 hour reception in the common tier? So not the basic, not the extravagant, but the common tier, the middle package that your eyes go to on some marketing material. What is that cost for this competitor or for this DJ business? And then, of course, the same thing with ceremony included. I have my costs here, and this is my 2021 costs. Those were derived from this work, which you'll see that in a few minutes, how that was derived. But I also capture, if I can get it, if there's my pricing for a party is an hourly rate. So I do a $200 per hour. And pricing for a corporate event is similar. So I just capture those data bits and pieces that I can get. Also extension services, like I don't offer other things other than a few lighting components like uplighting or monogram, But some other little things like I'll do a fog machine if haze, if people want haze with their lights, or perhaps my son Owen plays cello at some ceremonies. But I don't have, like some DJ companies have, a catering business like attached to their business. Some, none in my market that I know of, but that I've seen that some have, they're also a wedding coordinator, wedding planner, and those kind of extension services that help support, the event. So in any case, I like to know that, to know that about my competitors. Then this next section, these green columns, basically are what I'm trying to do is use these 4 variables to calculate a quick and dirty maturity index. How mature is the business in my competitive market? Okay, so I look at these 4 aspects. Okay, one is website. Okay, and do they have none, or is it basic but it's outdated? Or maybe it's full and featured and updated, which is what I graded mine. Or maybe it's you get a 3 if it's automated, it's got self-service options, it's really slick. Okay, that would be one aspect. Another is business location. Are you in the home office like I am, my home office? Or do you have like a shared business location that you actually pay for and go to? Or do you have your own brick and mortar, your own sign on the outside? That's kind of the idea of a business location score. Relative experience, and I don't mean DJ experience, more about the business and how long you have been operating as a business, or how much business experience you have, maybe from other businesses that you've moved into DJing from. And then business structure. Are you just a sole proprietorship, or you have no business structure? Or perhaps you're an LLC, or an LLC with insurance, business insurance, or maybe you're a large corp or an S corp or something. So depending on your business structure, I give you a score, and that is just added together, and it gives me a maturity index. Nothing magical about this. It's just something that I wanted as an indicator to let me know where my competitors are on a maturity scale, and you'll see why in a second. Also, a couple other little bits and pieces about where I can get them. I capture information here about, like, hey, how many events does this company do per year? And this could definitely be something that's hard to get, and you might get this from asking your peers, but you might not. How many employees they have, you can usually find that. Do they have any venues that they're affiliated with, or they're on the preferred vendor list? And I have a whole venues tab here where I keep track of all the venues in our market. And then growth, okay, something new. I'm just thinking about, how do I think about growth? Like, is there a market share component that I could figure out? Not sure yet, thinking about it. And then profitability. And this is a highly, you could say, contentious, or this has a lot of variables to it. This is not the same profitability number I would get out of my QuickBooks if I'm doing my accounting, but you'll see where this number comes from in a minute when I look at my inside out pricing calculation or cost calculation. Okay, guys, so I take all this information, and I take my little indexes that I made, and I basically put them on a 3 variable grid here, just a chart. And what this looks like is horizontal axis is my basic wedding cost for ceremony and reception. So that's that variable. And the maturity index would be that score that I calculated based on how mature the business seems to be. And then the size of the bubble, basically the diameter of the circle here in this little strategy map, this little chart, is essentially the number from the customer public reviews that we calculated. So looking at this, and you can take my green bubble out, that's me, I'm the green guy. And if you did a trend line, basically you would see that if you're at maturity level 6, you should be priced at 1,300. So that's what I did. I put my bubble here on purpose. So I saw this data, this research, and I said, okay, so the market's telling me that if I'm at this level of maturity, and if I set myself at a $1,300 per event, ceremony plus reception cost, price, then that would put me in parity with my market. So that's what I was going after. And it's also nice to know that relatively, not exact correlation here, but relatively, you can see that the size of the bubble, which again is related to how many reviews and how good those reviews are in the public landscape. Typically, you get bigger as you go up this curve, right? The more mature businesses have the bigger, more reviews and better scores. And, I'd say this guy right here, rated basically mature, it's a 6, but he's able to charge $1,500. That's pretty good, actually. So I would guess, great marketing, and I could tell you, yes, the story there on that competitor, great marketing, and really good at attracting customers. So he's able to basically over punch his weight, if you will. But then again, look at this big guy here. This guy could probably, based on being a 6 maturity, but also having all this positive press, could move over to the right, could up their price. Okay, so hopefully you guys can kind of see what this represents. And it's, again, there's nothing magic about it. It's just logic and thinking about the operators, the competitors, or really the peers around me and how they're working. And this is where I'd like to place myself in the landscape. So the other way to think about cost and pricing your services is to do a pricing calculation. Now, what I have here is a general worksheet that looks at a couple different aspects of cost. One is fixed cost, okay? And that's basically in this portion. And then a little bit further down is variable costs. And then I have labor costs, and then a little bit of summary. So what this is, and you could do this 101 different ways, okay, guys? So this is just one way to do it. So what I did was I thought through, there are fixed costs that even if I have 0 events this weekend, I will have these costs. I will have already taken these costs and bear those costs. And they are things like my equipment, my controller, my speakers, my mic, my cables, my microphones, etc. And since I'm kind of focused on reception plus ceremony weddings, I'm thinking about my whole set of gear, all my kit, if you will. So I've got my main setup, I've got my ceremony setup, I've got computers, iPad, I've got the furniture. So that's mostly my table and scrims, maybe tripods or whatnot, music, business expenses, and clothing and shoes and whatnot. Okay, so when I think about this, I just basically estimated, and these are low. I mean, I think my furniture probably I could jump this up a little bit, and some of these are kind of low, but this is a replacement cost. If I got totally wiped out and had to rebuild all my components here, that's what that number's meant to be. And it's a little conservative, as I mentioned. So basically what I do is I say, okay, so in the fixed costs, I want to think about it in a way that every event I am charging in my price, there's some sort of cost structure in my price. There's a piece of my price that I'm recouping for those fixed costs. Now, there's 2 ways that I think logically you could think about it as a DJ. One is a relative rental cost. What would it cost you to go to your friend or to something like Guitar Center in the United States and rent the full complement of gear that you need to go out to your venue and perform your service? Well, in that method, I think it would be the typical standard number that you would use as an estimate would be 5% of your replacement cost would be your per event charge. Would cost about 5% to rent some of the larger audio gear. But the second method would be think about your useful life and divide that replacement cost over the useful life, all the events and the time that you would use that equipment. So I kind of loosely, it's about 5% for the rental method. It's about 1% for the useful life method based on what I've seen, my experience. I would say to you, look at your experience and see how often do you replace gear or whatever, because there's so many variables. There's, how much do you care for it? Do you keep your gear in covers or cases or not? Do you throw it in the car at the end of the night, or are you very ginger and careful with it? Do you have roadies that are just manhandling stuff and throwing it around, or are you like really meticulous and careful with things? Do you clean it once a year? Do you buy premium commercial gear, or do you buy like more middle tier gear? All of those variables pack into the equation of useful life. So, and of course, how many events you do a year also plugs into that. So figure out what you're comfortable with. I picked a number right between those two methods. So I picked a 3% number. So basically, total replacement of each of these times 3% gives me my per event charge, okay? 3% of my total replacement I want to recoup from each wedding. Okay, so that is fixed costs for my equipment and services. Now, variable costs, this is like, if I have 0 weddings this weekend, I don't have to spend any of this money. If I have 1 wedding, I have to spend this money times 1. If I have 2 weddings this weekend, I have to spend this money times 2. The variable costs. Okay. So, and it's really simply transportation for me. It's transportation, it's batteries and some tape, and basically payment and bank fees and those kind of things from accepting, of course, deposits and balance payments and stuff like that. So this has a lot of variation, and I just took some historical data and tried to figure out, well, what's basically an average plug I could use for this. We're not trying to get exact here. We're just trying to get a working number. Okay, labor costs. This has a lot of, I know that these numbers appear low, but I wanted to try to think of it as if I was a business owner and I had to outsource some of these functions, like the consultation or the planning, what would I charge? And I thought, well, you know what? For that time, it could be done by an administrator. It doesn't have to be a DJ, although you would want it to be. I'd want to do it myself, and this is why I do it. But if I had to outsource it, I'd probably be able to charge or pay $10 an hour for that service. Same with load in and load out. And for the actual DJ and MC, I think I could probably find a junior DJ to do a night of service for $75 an hour. None of us, and I'm sure if you're watching this, that might not be at the price that you're thinking, oh, that's I would never do something for that. But remember what we're trying to do here. We're not trying to price you. What I'm trying to do is think through the labor cost of that service. Okay. So all of this is pricing you as a business. This is just one contributor. So hopefully that makes sense. I put this into my little table here, and as I add everything up, it basically totals to $1,100. So if I plug in my number here from my competitive landscape that I figured out on the tab prior, my price $1,300, it looks like I'm making a profit of about $200 per event. I'm very happy with the way that this is set up, because it basically gives me an idea that I will have the ability to recoup or rather replace my equipment over time as wear and tear does its thing. Okay. Also, I'm able to recoup my variable costs because that's baked into my overall price. I'm able to recoup my labor costs, and I'm able to make a profit. I'm able to clear a profit. Now, if I came in here and I charged $1,000, and maybe that's where I am, guess what? I'm operating in a loss. Is that a real loss? No, because these numbers here are kind of a phantom number, right? I mean, these aren't actual per event charges that I'm having to recoup unless I'm leasing or renting every time, which that could introduce some different factors here. But what I would say is if you do all this work and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm running at a loss, that's okay, because then you know where your weak spots are. Maybe figure out a different way. Maybe more Zoom meetings, less driving to transportation meeting or consulting meetings, or maybe it's, oh my gosh, I've got too much in my load in load out. I need to optimize that so I don't have to have so much labor cost. Whatever that looks like to you. Now, for me, I'm a single operative part-time DJ with my company, and I do all of this. Like I do all that says labor here. This is all me. I don't hire any help. So essentially, this is really just what is my time worth, okay? And I want, for my business, I want a fair labor cost, and I want a profit so that I can take that money and basically I invest it back into my business. Okay, maybe I purchase something that I didn't have before that I can help extend the services for my business, or I can go to a concert and do some research and see a band that I want to see because it connects me more to the music, which that always helps me as a DJ to grow and to experience music. So any case, I think my method is not for everyone here, but hopefully you picked up something, or hopefully it helped you think through things a little differently, or maybe just add a factor. Maybe you have something similar, but you learn about a new factor that you can add into your methodology. One other thing here is I estimated the ceremony portion of the cost that was made up here. So I was able to take that out. It's about $250. So I took that out, and that gave me my pricing for my wedding with reception only, with no ceremony. Guys, that is it. That is my walkthrough on how I take my sort of outside in approach and looking at my competitive landscape to derive what price I should set myself at, and then looking at it the same thing from the inside out to make sure that I'm clearing my costs and making a profit. Hopefully that helps you guys. And if you like this content and other videos that you're seeing on my page, I'd love it if you could subscribe. And basically, we'll be doing this at least once a week with videos and content coming out for you guys. And I wish you much success in 2021, and I'll see you next time.